Hello and welcome to the Teach Music 21C podcast series. I'm Merlin Thompson, the creator and founder of Teach Music 21C. It's a professional development program for music studio teachers where the focus is on nurturing and empowering our students as lifelong music makers. And I'm joined today by Shu-Yi Scott, an experienced cello teacher and member of our executive team here at Teach Music 21C. Welcome, Shu-Yi.
Hi, Merlin. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here.
So it's really great to have you joining in today. And I think we have a topic that would make a really good exploration for both of us. Why don't you just give us a little bit of an idea of where we'd like to head today?
Oh, sure. So we just had a little chit chat. I recently, collected some of the teachers' questions or, there's some obstacles they're encountering in their teaching world, and a couple of them in common. A couple are, having trouble about convincing the parents to make sure that the parents can trust them. So right now, the parents are, questioning or worried. They're worried that their own students are not moving fast enough or not progressing fast enough as other students in this teacher studio. So, I, of course, heard about all sorts of comments about like parents should not do that, or teachers should do this, or students should do that. Some teachers suggest that having achievement certificate kind of system, hand each student a paper certificate so that the parents will see some visible rewards for their students. But I feel the basic question that we hear and we see over and over again is this parents having different kind of expectation, and how do we, besides focus on teaching students, how do we also communicate with the parents and somehow I can't expect this, but somehow that parents can be on board as a team.
Yeah, yeah. So
Again.
you really, it's just really so interesting how it's this whole notion of communication that's so important. And we talk about communication all the time. And we say, yeah, I'm a really good communicator, I'm a really good communicator. But the question becomes then, what are we communicating about? Because it's one thing to be professional and approachable. It's another thing for parents to be aware of what is it exactly that we are trying to achieve. And I like to, I've had this process for I don't know how many years now, that I always start the semester with a goal determining sheet. And whether I involve the parents or not, it depends on the age of the child. But I want to make sure that I start off the beginning of the term and I finish the end of the term by looking at that, what was on our goal sheet. Because I have two goals that are for me really important. One is, what are the overarching musical goals that I'm looking as a teacher to see the students progress through? So there's a kind of teacher-led goal thing going on. And at the same time, I want to find out what about the meaningful goals for students at the same time. So it's not just about are they achieving the teacher goals. I also want to be keeping track of, are we achieving the students' goals as well? And so those are things that I'm going to be checking in probably every 2 to 3 weeks. And that makes a really, really great, what can I say, framework for communicating with parents. So you can say to the parents at a certain point, oh, we've made some good improvement here, or we're on a plateau here or something, but you're going to talk about both places, knowing that if you're only focused on the teacher progress, you may eventually run out of steam. If you only focused on what's meaningful for students, well, you may not get much progress happening over here. So there's always this back and forth progress process that's going on.
I'm very intrigued by what you're saying, that the students' goals and the teachers' goals, and always checking in between and checking on both to make sure that you are working together. So I think that shared goal idea is quite refreshing. I think you know in terms of more conventional music teaching mindset. So, but at the same time, how would you, because I'm a parent also, when I send my child or my children to different classes, art class or anything, I do want to know what, in the end of a term, what will they achieve or what will they know. So I can understand these parents' concerns that they want to make sure the students are learning something. But I also understand it's much easier to hang on to some external assessment or reward system, such as ABRSM or different RCM kind of system, and so those they serve some kind of significant value in terms of keeping students, parents, and teachers in kind of a relatively harmonious spots. But what do you have, in terms of that, bringing in any external value to, or evaluation for the students? What do you have?
Yeah, so that can be part of the teacher-led side of the musical goals.
Mm.
How did the student perform then in this competition or in this exam? So those places give us a certain amount of feedback for sure. And for parents, I always think parents are coming in with somewhat preconceived ideas about what should be happening, which are not off base. They're generally pretty, they're close to what we should be looking at. The challenge for me is if you only have those goals in mind, it may be difficult to sustain that movement through various progress, through various levels that the student might be going through. The other thing that for me is that I want to pay attention to is conversations around growth and rest. So not every week is a growth week in students' lives. And parents understand that. They know their kids really well. They know that in grade 1, for example, the first 4 months of grade 1, it's a total write-off. The kids are just going to come home from school exhausted every day. That's going to be it. Junior high, another time. First year of junior high, don't anticipate too much happening. So it's important that we have these, what I call reporting mechanisms. And then we also have the real life aspects that are going on, which is, and I love these two words, growth and rest, because there are times, I love January. January is a great month for growth in Canada. There's nothing else to do. It's too cold outside. So January is a great month of growth. February, well, people are worn out from January, so we're taking things a bit easy. So even having those kinds of conversations with parents, I know we're talking about communication. I mentioned reporting mechanisms, but it's also important to be aware of what do learning processes look like.
So you probably, I think when we go on our day-to-day teaching schedule, it's easy to for teachers to, I don't know, should I call it a blind spot about missing the opportunity to communicate with the parents. I think we always communicate with the students, making sure they're doing what we ask them to do. And I think communicate with the parents, just make sure that every single, even just a minute step of growth, making sure that we share that with the parents, so that they really know that their students are moving towards the growing or the advancing step. But I still think that is on the soft side of sharing the teacher's assessment of a student. Is there other way that's more, I don't want to say external, but is there other ways that you can, other tips for the new teachers out there to make sure that's happening?
Gee, really good. We're just going to keep delving deeper into the
Deeper,
topic.
yes.
Who we haven't talked about is the students' perceptions of what's going on.
Right.
So we have parents' perception of what's going on. We have teachers' perception of what's going on. we also need to have the student's perception of what's going on.
Mm.
So it's really important for, and this is a long-term thing for students. I like to think in elementary students, I'm sowing the seeds for them. I'm giving them the words for, are you making progress or not? Well, how can you tell? I always remember, my beginning students saying they thought they were doing really well because they felt good. So he had a smile all the way through playing the piece. Had, I don't know how many mistakes it had, but the mistakes were irrelevant because he felt good about the performance. So there's a certain amount of, I'll say, sowing seeds with students so they get a more and more, I like the word sophisticated, but that seems like where we're headed to, but just a more accurate way of describing what is going on with their own personal development. So
Yes.
that's again vocabulary. Those words may not be a part of their normal everyday life. And it's also part of how do you go from how I feel about things emotionally to how I think about things. And am I using my reflective process to, how am I looking for what's going to happen in the future as well? So there's this thing that happens with students that's a very long-term process. It's not an overnight kind of thing at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why it's so fun to chat with you about teaching. You always reminded me to put things in the longer term perspective. Every student we receive, like you said, sowing the seeds for the love of cello, of the not cello, teacher for love for music, is so important. Yeah, I think for parents, it's so easy to think week by week,
Right.
right? So I guess what I gather from your sharing is that we could share with the parents that the students say this month or 2 months of progress to let them understand that things don't just come up quickly.
Right.
Like that. Recently, I used this Chinese idiom. In Chinese, it's called you say it as 揠苗助长. It means that there was this fable of a farmer who was impatient for his rice plants to grow, so he pulled the rice each seedling longer, thinking that it will grow taller, but actually the next day they all died. So I, sometimes I like to use that fable to just remind other teachers and parents that shortcut doesn't work that way. Yeah, so in terms of making sure the parents are in the picture and communicate with the parents at the same time the students' interest is on board. Do you have any other suggestions?
Yeah, I think the thing that I want to pay attention to is just what you were mentioning. Progress takes place over time, not overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And we do come from a history where we like to have this efficiency model in place, which says that every week we're getting things done, like the factory system. And it's unfortunate that that's such a huge part of our past. It doesn't mean that we can't be efficient about what happens week to week.
Exactly.
But today we understand that there are more influences going on than they have in a factory system. There are all kinds of layers that are happening in learning to play a musical instrument or to sing. And, it's just an adventure week after week after week. And to look at the details and to look at the long term, yeah, lots of things happening. And that might be just a wonderful place to wrap things up today.
Yeah.
We've been talking about communication with parents. We've come to the understanding it's important to have some kind of reporting mechanism so that you can talk about more than one thing, more than one set of goals, and including the student in setting those kinds of goals and being aware of their own progress. I think is really important as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. So I'm Merlin Thompson. This is the Teach Music 21C podcast series. I've been here today with Shu-Yi Scott, who's from our executive team. Thank you, Shu-Yi, so much for taking part today. And we'll see you all next time. Thanks for joining in. Bye for now.
See you next time. Bye.